The following recording is one of the 38 workshops presented by and for members of the Adult Children of Alcoholics Fellowship at the 7th Annual ACA World Convention held virtually May 21st and 22nd, 2022. The AWC is hosted by the ACA World Service Organization and was made possible through the dedication and energy of ACA members giving service by sharing their experience, strength, and hope. Please visit the adultchildren.org website for more information about ACA, for worldwide ACA meeting listings, or to make a 7th Tradition contribution. We hope that you enjoy the following workshop from the 7th Annual ACA World Convention, and the theme was Beyond Mere Survival, Action Coming from Love.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Finding Support and Recovery. I'm going to need help from the slides to know where to go next. Please.
Who is sharing slides? I can if you want.
I can. Hold on.
Okay.
Do you have, Gretchen, do you have the ones that I made?
No, I have these. Is this what you're looking for or not?
Yes and no. Tamara, can you share what I sent?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Where did you send it to?
In Slack, I think.
On Slack. Okay, let me check.
There's
You guys.
There's the opening and closing minus the parts that we're not reading.
I'm sorry. I was all prepared for this morning, and 8 hours have passed. So, yes, you guys go
Yeah,
on.
8 long hours.
Yeah.
8 long hours. And Gretchen, we're going to ask you to time for us, okay?
Sure. You said two-ish minutes?
Even the presenters. 2 minutes
okay.
for the questions at the end, but I think we're going to have timers for the presenters today.
Okay, you want 7 minutes, you had said?
7 minutes each with a reminder at 1 minute, please.
Okay, and then for the 2 minute, do you need a reminder or just that's time?
Just a kind of a wrap it up nudge.
Okay.
And I can share the opening slides first. Is that where you guys are ready to be? Okay. On my way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And we'll go, oops, I'm sorry. I need to get all my chats out of the way. All my participants. And we'll go to the beginning. Okay.
All right. So there we are. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our worldwide ACA fellowship. Welcome to the 7th Annual ACA World Convention. This is the largest gathering of adult children in the world, connecting our ACA members, our family of choice, to each other all around the planet to share experience, strength, and hope as we recover from the effects of dysfunctional childhoods. While the pandemic brought challenges to us all, it also brought us together as a truly global fellowship, as we found belonging and connection with others, healing from the effects of family dysfunction. This convention is being hosted by the ACA World Services Organization, or WSO, and our theme this year is Beyond Mere Survival, Action Coming from Love. This year we have 38 sessions running nearly 40 hours around the clock and around the world. My name is Justine. I am currently located in Pennsylvania in the United States, and this session is finding support in recovery. I apologize.
1 minute, Justine. I'm sorry. Did you read, was the recording was it started and we need to restart the recording? It was. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Okay. Next slide, please. Thanks. To preserve everybody's anonymity, the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, please be sure to rename yourself to show only your first name and last initial. This session is being Zoomed worldwide, as well as being broadcast on a streaming channel and audio recorded. The audio will be available for listening and download on the adultchildren.org website. Because I've been asked several times today, that's going to take a few weeks, so thanks for your patience. We therefore ask that you do not record any audio, video, or take any pictures of any part of the AWC. We also request that you not share the Zoom link on any social media, website, or email lists. Registration is open throughout the event and anybody can register and join. This is to protect the serenity of the event and keep our links out of the hands of Zoom bombers. Thanks for your understanding. During the meeting, all participants will be muted. Chat will be closed to all, but you will be able to contact the host at all times. Please do not send chat messages to the presenter unless prompted to do so. When a volunteer is requested to read or ask and answer a question, please use the Zoom raise hand feature at that time. You will be asked to unmute when it is your turn to speak. The chat feature will only be opened for participants before and after the main session, or if asked by the presenters to post questions or otherwise interact in the meeting via this function. Please remember that what you hear at this meeting should remain at the meeting. We do not talk about another person's story or experiences to other people. Please respect the privacy of all those who share with us today. While we're on video, please be mindful of others and turn off your camera if you are eating, smoking, not currently in view, moving around, or in a public area with other people present. We meet to share the experience we had growing up in an environment where abuse, neglect, and trauma infected our childhoods and still affect us today. While our members may be from homes where addiction was present, it's not a requirement. The only requirement for membership in ACA is the desire to recover from the effects of growing up in an alcoholic or otherwise dysfunctional environment. By practicing the 12 steps and accepting that we can't recover alone, we identify with the problem or laundry list and learn to live in the solution of reparenting ourselves with gentleness, humor, love, and respect, one day at a time. Please join me in opening our meeting with the ACA Serenity Prayer in whatever language or way calls your heart. I'm going to allow for a moment everybody to unmute so that we can ruin the recording. Let's get a big chaotic love fest going with the Serenity Prayer. After a deep breath, higher power,
serenity, courage to change the one I can't change, wisdom to know that one is me.
Play and have fun.
That one is me. Huh.
Thank you so much. That's awesome. Next slide, please. We're going to do just the solution today. For this session, I mean. Do we have a volunteer, please, to read the solution? Just raise your hand. Lisa, please.
Oh, okay. The solution. Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm an adult child. Hey, everybody. The solution is to become your own loving parent. As ACA becomes a safe place for you, you will find freedom to express all the hurts and fears you have kept inside and to free yourself from the shame and blame that are carryovers from the past. You will become an adult who is imprisoned no longer by childhood reactions. You will recover the child within you, learning to accept and love yourself. The healing begins when we risk moving out of isolation. Feelings and buried memories will return. By gradually releasing the burden of unexpressed grief, we slowly move out of the past. We learn to reparent ourselves with gentleness, humor, love, and respect. This process allows us to see our biological parents as the instruments of our existence. Our actual parent is a higher power whom some of us choose to call God. Although we had alcoholic or dysfunctional parents, our higher power gave us the 12 steps of recovery. This is the action and work that heals us. We use the steps, we use the meetings, we use the telephone. We share our experience, strength, and hope with each other. We learn to restructure our sick thinking one day at a time. When we release our parents from responsibility for our actions today, we become free to make healthful decisions as actors, not reactors. We progress from hurting to healing to helping. We awaken to a sense of wholeness we never knew was possible. By attending these meetings on a regular basis, you will come to see parental alcoholism or family dysfunction for what it is, a disease that infected you as a child and continues to affect you as an adult. You will learn to keep the focus on yourself in the here and now. You will take responsibility for your own life and supply your own parenting. You will not do this alone. Look around you and you will see others who know how you feel. We will love and encourage you no matter what. We ask you to accept us just as we accept you. This is a spiritual program based on action coming from love. We are sure that as the love grows inside you, you will see beautiful changes in all your relationships, especially with your higher power, yourself, and your parents. Thanks.
Are you wanting your guys' slides now, Justine?
No, that file that I sent to you.
Okay.
Or if you want me to screen share it, I can.
No, I got it.
Thank you.
This one.
There we go. Okay. So we're here to present to you this new book that's going to be coming out soon-ish. It is just about, it has gone to literature evaluation and has not begun that process yet, but will soon, I hope. The entire writer team is not here, but there are, we have some great people here to present the book to you and share their experience, and I'll introduce them to you as they come up. I will let everybody know that Sue V could not be here tonight. She did the morning presentation, but then had storms and a power outage and wasn't able to be here. So Greg is going to cover one of her sections, and we're going to skip the other in the interest of time so that we can actually get to questions this evening. Okay, so next slide, please, or scroll down. Thank you. This is the meditation that's in the beginning of the book. I'm sorry, did you have a question?
No, I was just wondering if you sent a PowerPoint version, but this is fine.
Thank you. So this is a meditation that opens the book, basically. And I'm going to read it and invite you to read along in your head or out loud or however you feel or not. Today, may I remember that ACA and its meeting and service structure are different from my family of origin. May I be patient and avoid reaching for the easiest way out when I'm confronted with a difficult situation. Help me and those supporting me in my ACA program to ask for help in keeping our relationship safe and recovery oriented. Also help us celebrate the things that we do right. Next slide. Thank you. Okay, so I am going to read part of the introduction from the book, which explains pretty much what the book is about. Right now, the working title is Connections, a Guide to Giving and Receiving Support in ACA Recovery. This guide was written in part to address questions that arose about the use of the terms fellow traveler and sponsor in Chapter 11 of Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families, our Big Red Book, or BRB. We recognize that the BRB recommends the fellow traveler method of sponsorship, yet primarily addresses one-on-one support by a person with more experience of a person with less experience. This guide presents a broader version of support and clarifies that when the BRB speaks of the fellow traveler method of sponsorship, it's referring to the concept of using a non-directive and non-authoritarian form of communication rather than prescribing that the only recommended form of support is where one person is an experienced sponsor and the other a less experienced sponsee. We recognize that the Big Red Book recommends that one get a sponsor. Over the years since the Big Red Book was written, ACA members have found varied ways of supporting each other in recovery without a formal sponsor. Furthermore, as we grow in our program, the nature of support relationships may change. We may not be of equal experience, strength, and hope with another person, but we are all on equal footing, human beings deserving of respect. We use the words supporter and supported person as umbrella terms for a variety of different relationships in ACA recovery, including sponsors, co-sponsors, fellow travelers, recovery partners, sharing partners, recovery coaches, mentors, group members, etc. We do not intend to substitute the terms supporter and supported person for the terms that you already use in your recovery, but recognize that whatever term you use falls under the larger category of support. Most of the sections in this guide will apply to support relationships where one member is sharing back and forth with another in meetings, group work, co-sponsorship, or what some call fellow traveler work. In these relationships, the members alternate between being a supporter and being a supported person. A later section addresses those considerations unique to traditional sponsorship, including the challenge of people being willing to sponsor. We encourage each reader to apply this guide to their particular support relationships, whatever terms work for you. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, first topic is sponsor relationships. And Greg R. is going to speak about that. He's going to read an excerpt from the book and then speak from his own experience. Take it away, Greg.
Thank you, Justine. It's great to be with everybody this evening, morning, afternoon, whatever time it is for you. And I really am honored to be able to present here as well as participate. You know, sponsor relationships, as described in the Connections Guide, are those where one person with more experience, strength, and hope works with someone who's less experienced. And this can take several different forms, though we don't talk about many of those in there. But what's said in here is both the more experienced and less experienced member can grow in trust and intimacy as the relationship develops. The experienced members are not therapists or counselors, but they can offer needed support to another person revisiting abuse, trauma, and other overwhelming childhood experiences. And I want to read the share that's here because I think that it's very pertinent because some of us have preconceived notions of sponsorship relationships. It says, regarding the term fellow traveler, to me, a sponsor is more than a fellow traveler. A sponsor is a spiritual mentor who makes me look at things I may not have looked at before and is not afraid to gently convey the need to take an honest look at myself. I feel safe with my sponsor, as this person is careful not to be critical of my pain, but understanding of it. And when I came into ACA, I had I'd been in quite a while. I'd spent quite a while in 2 other fellowships, and in both those fellowships, I was very blessed. I've heard negative stories about sponsorship in other programs, but I ended up choosing a friend of mine that I had known who was in both programs as my sponsor. And that was a blessing, even though I was told don't do that. That was a blessing because he was very compassionate with me. He knew me, and the way he sponsored was very different from the way some other people sponsor. He just asked questions, and he didn't try to push me in a given direction. He went where I wanted to go, where I needed to go, or I decided that I needed to go, and that was very helpful. There's that, I forget the movie, but there's that wax on, wax off deal with Mr. Miyagi. And some of you, particularly outside the US, may not know. I don't remember what it was. Karate Kid was the movie. And, that's okay in some senses, but that didn't work for me as a sponsee. And it's not the way that I would work with sponsees of mine. One of the things that's very important to me in a sponsor relationship is to allow the person that I'm working with to grow, and I like the term, by the way, that we use sometimes here, recovery partner. I encourage them to grow, and I look forward to the time without pressure that they get to a point where we can be what I call co-sponsors, and that is where we both have gone through the steps, gone through the inner child work, and I rely on them as much as they rely on me. And it's, that's what I think this is all about when it comes to working with others, is that we share, we work together. It's not about a person being dominant, another person submitting to the will of that person. And I think that's all I have to say. And I'll wait for any questions at the end when we get to that. So thank you very much, Justine, and thanks everybody.
Thanks so much, Greg. The next topic is fellow travelers, and Louis B. is going to speak about that. Thanks, Louis.
Thanks, Justine. Again, grateful to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to share. Fellow travelers, fellow travelers is a term that both in the Big Red Book and then how I've used it myself and how other people speak of it comes into play in a lot of different ways. I think there's a lot of different understandings and oftentimes a lot of confusion about what that means. And I think just in practice, it's used in a lot of different ways. I'm going to read an excerpt. I was asked to read an excerpt from the Connections on Fellow Travelers, so I'll go ahead and do that. Speaking of fellow travelers, in this approach, two ACA members with similar experience, strength, and hope in program support each other's continued recovery. This model works well for ACA members with significant experience, strength, and hope because they'll be familiar with program literature and principles. This can also work for two relative newcomers, although it seems to work best if at least one of the newcomers has some experience in working the steps in another 12-step recovery program, or if they've identified a more experienced ACA who's available to answer questions or lend support. In these relationships, the role of supporter and supported person shifts back and forth. We learn to listen intently when the other person is sharing, avoid giving advice unless it's directly requested, and practice the gentle and loving language used by a loving parent. So, and I understand the term fellow traveler is not exactly like this. I have people who I consider to be fellow travelers who have more experience, strength, and hope than me, and those who have less experience, strength, and hope than me. And I just continue to use the fellow travelers term for all of them. That's kind of how I do it. I also like the term recovery partners. There's just in the term recovery partners, there's nothing in the term itself that denotes authority, which I like. If you just look at the term sponsor, sponsee, just the terms themselves can denote someone being in charge and someone who's not in charge. So for me personally, I came into the program and I just sort of bristled with the term sponsor, sponsee. And I've come to understand there being a lot of authority stuff that I've had to work through over time. It's just not something that resonated with me. That said, I have a lot of people who I have very close long-term relationships with in the program, and I just sort of refer to them as my recovery partners. Again, some of those people have more experience, strength, and hope than I do, and there's others that don't have as much. And quite honestly, there's areas that I feel like I have more experience, strength, and hope in certain areas than they have some in other areas. So most of the work I've done has been part of recovery groups, which I think Justine's going to be talking about in a little bit later. But that's what I did. It was sort of the group wisdom, the group conscience sort of became an indirect sponsor for me in a lot of ways. And through the recovery work groups, maybe 4 to 8 people meeting weekly. These are not the registered meetings, but intensive work groups to look at doing step work or traits work or now loving parent guidebook work, meeting with the same people, small group of people week after week, for months or even over a year sometimes, really getting to know people in very in-depth ways and them getting to know me. So even though I don't consider myself ever having sponsored anyone or having been a sponsor, I've been in the program for 8 years. And so, there's places in our literature that says, yes, having a sponsor is an essential part of recovery. And that just hasn't been true for me, not in the way that it defines it. But coming out of isolation and forming really in-depth, deep, restorative connections with people is essential for sure. It's just sort of some of it's just being the terminology that we use. And I also think too, for newcomers coming into the program, a lot of my service work has been around working with newcomers and just sort of exploring different ways that we can provide newcomers resources outside of a traditional sponsorship role. I'll also say that I'm really grateful for the Connections Project. I was part of it for a while, and I felt like they're very open to some of my perspectives, and I see that reflected in how the document has grown and evolved over time. I really think of understanding recovery relationships at a very base level. How is it that I can learn to connect with another person and that person connect with me in safe, healthy, responsible ways as really the core piece of what we're talking about with recovery relationships. And then, the added dynamics when there's differences of experience, strength, and hope, and those considerations, it's really important. So I'm grateful that ACA has had more flexibility than what I came across in some other 12-step programs in this area, allowing me to do the work that I needed in ways that worked for me. So that's what I have tonight. Thank you for letting me share.
Thanks so much, Louis. Next up is groups and co-sponsors, and that's me. I am going to read an excerpt from the book first. Working in a small group. Some ACAs join private groups that aren't registered as open ACA meetings to work the program. These groups often meet to complete a cycle of the 12 steps or other ACA workbooks. These members provide each other with support as they mutually engage in program work. Some ACAs choose to work primarily in small groups. Others combine small group work with working one-on-one with another adult child. Frequently, members will meet someone in a small group who then becomes a fellow traveler, co-sponsor, or sponsor. The ACA program offers choice and encourages creativity in how members find support. Study groups give us an opportunity to practice healthier ways of being and to release outdated coping behaviors. Whenever possible, it can be helpful to have an ACA network outside the group to support you for reparenting purposes, as well as to discuss issues and feelings that arise in group work. It's important to keep each study group a safe place to practice these new ways of being. So when I came back into ACA after a 25-year absence, I went to a meeting in New Jersey where after a couple months, I wanted to start working the steps, and we were told find a sponsor, and there were only two. There was one male who felt unsafe to me, and there was a female who scared the hell out of me. She was very stern, and she frightened me. And she turned out to be a dear friend, but in the beginning, she really scared me. So I got together with 3 other women, and none of us had any idea what we were doing. But I approached it with the idea that it wasn't going to be the last time I worked the steps. So it didn't have to be perfect, and it didn't have to give me everything I needed from the steps, because I'd get more the next time around. Sorry, apparently something's on fire. So after a while, I started another meeting, and a step group grew up out of that meeting, and we would meet in a closed room every other week, and it was a co-ed group of 8 people. And those 7 other people are still today family. They are the people that I turn to when something is wrong or really right, or I need help or someone to listen. It was such an experience of intimacy and trust, which is something I really knew nothing about before this group. And we continue to be close today, 5 years later. We have a daily text group to which we have invited some others from the meeting, and it works really well, and worked really well while we were doing the steps. They are that group went on to do the laundry lists workbook, and will after that be doing the Loving Parent Guidebook together. There's something about the continuity of working with the same people week after week and having more than one. I was always told in the beginning, go to different meetings and hear different voices. So now in my step work, in my workbook work, whatever the workbook is, I have more than one voice. I have more than one recovery partner, that's the term that I prefer. And sometimes something will come up that I think I can go to one person about, and then something else will come up and I think it's best that I bring that to a different person. And I've got that option. We each have that option. And I think it's just wonderful. They are people that I grew to love and trust. And one of them is now my co-sponsor. She's typically the first person that I call when something is wrong or right or confusing or scary. And now that COVID has happened and Zoom has happened, these groups are not just in person. These groups are now virtual. Your working group could include people from around the world. I have seen them build and grow and started some of them myself. It's been a tremendous opportunity. One of the biggest messages that I hope comes out of all of this is that the only wrong way to work the ACA program is by yourself. Thanks for listening. Okay, sorry about the truck. The next section is service support, and unfortunately, because Sue is unable to be here, we're going to skip this for tonight. There is a section in the book about getting a service sponsor or a service co-sponsor, and I hope that people, when they read the book, will enjoy that and get a lot out of it. We're going to move, though, next to gender and support, and Greg R. is going to present that as well.
Thanks, Justine. I do want to give a special thanks to all of the members of the fellowship who participated in building this guide, this connections guide. I think it's a great opportunity for us to kind of bridge some gaps that we've had in our thought processes and give us a little more latitude in supporting each other and more ideas. As far as gender or sexual orientation, there's a section in the guide, and I'll read from it a bit. I'll read a few sentences. It says, while there's no one rule about working one-on-one with a supporter of the same gender or sexual orientation, it's advisable to pick a person with whom we are not likely to confuse our step work with romantic feelings or sexual attraction, especially early in recovery. And then there's another part that says that issues with addiction, a person with the same gender identity may relate better to what it's like to grow up as that gender identity, not only in a dysfunctional home, but in dysfunctional cultures. So when we started ACA back up a little over 10 years ago in Austin, we had no one who had gone through the steps. We had no one who had done the inner child work. And so a few of us early on completed the steps, a couple of us actually. And so we didn't have very many people that were willing to step up and work with others, not even in the fellow traveler mode were people willing to work with each other. So a number of people came up to me and asked me to be their sponsor. And I said yes. And in that, I violated this little rule or suggestion, not rule, that is made here, because as a sponsor of mine asked me later, said, well, you should let go of the women that you're sponsoring. I said, okay, well, that's really good, but what do I do about the gays, lesbians, and bisexuals that I'm also sponsoring? Who's sponsoring whom? And I won't say the words that were said when I asked that question, but it's a really important distinction that we need to work with somebody. So how do we do that? if we don't have very many people, especially in the beginning, or don't have many people that have experienced the kind of dysfunction that we have experienced. The thing that I learned is I have to check my motives. I have to say, why am I willing to sponsor this person, not willing to sponsor another person? If in fact I check my motives, I check against, and I do this frequently, and I recommend that my recovery partners do the same, is, am I romantically or sexually interested in this person? Do I have a financial interest? You know, there are stories from other fellowships of people asking sponsees to do work around their house. And I gave the example earlier today that I had one sponsee that said, hey, I'll come by and I'll power wash your driveway for you, clean your driveway. And I said, well, how much do you charge? He said, oh, I'll do it for free. I said, well, then no, thank you. Because I don't want to conflict my recovery with business. And am I looking for someone to be my loving parent? And am I looking to be their loving parent or to dominate? One of the challenges that I have working with my recovery partners is, I'm 70 years old, and most of my recovery partners are at least 20 years younger than me. That means that they're the age of my sons and daughter. And I have to be more careful about, am I looking at this person as a son or a daughter, than if I, am concerned about some sort of other attraction to them. Is there some other dynamic in play that I can become aware of that would say maybe it's better that they get another sponsor or another fellow traveler or another recovery partner? There are some things that go along with that discernment that aren't just based, in gender considerations. I have to allow for any person any recovery partner to work with others. As Justine was saying, sometimes, because of the nature of their intimate details, sexual abuse, whatever, I'm not the person that they feel comfortable sharing with, and they can go share with somebody else. And I allow that, because that's what we do. I mean, that's the way we recover, is work with people that know about that and we feel safe with about that particular topic. It doesn't mean everything has to be done with one person or with one group. I also tell my recovery
That's
partners.
1 minute, Greg.
Thank you. I tell my recovery partners when I'm working with them what I've learned out of the sessions. That's really important to me. And we've had issues with study groups here where people don't stay in the group, and suddenly one person is left without anybody. And so what our policy is here, if you want to call it a policy, is just raise your hand in a meeting and say, hey, I need somebody to work step 3 with me, or step 6, whatever it is, and just work step by step. And I'll end it there. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Greg. And the final topic tonight is solving problems in support, and that's going to be presented by Diane E.
Thank you so much, Justine, and thank you to everyone that's made all of this possible. It's been incredible. The section that I was given to comment on and to read a little excerpt from is called Solving Problems. And I was asked to share on this because I recently had a problem in a sponsor-sponsee relationship. I was a sponsor, and it was difficult and it was painful. And so I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But first, I'd like to read a small section from the section on problem solving, and it's called When Either Party is Not Meeting Commitments. As abandonment is a key laundry list trait, we recognize when we make a commitment to call someone on the phone or show up at a meeting or participate in a group study that honoring our commitments helps others in our network feel honored, respected, and heard. If we take on a service commitment, we honor the terms of the commitment or find a substitute if necessary. If we agree to meet one-on-one with a supporter, we respect the time and energy we both devote to these meetings, and we both show up when we say we will. If we become uncomfortable, feel unsafe, and want to change our commitments, we step back, seek discernment from our higher power or spiritual principles, and then seek a solution. Just to say that I have followed the model of kind of being a sponsor to a number of people simply because that's what they've asked for. For myself personally, when I came back into the program with my best friend, and she and I started a meeting 8 years ago, and we became each other's fellow travelers. So we did all of the step work and the workbooks together. And she is my closest person to me in the program when I have my own issues with my recovery. So this particular sponsee that I'm going to be talking about, the problem revealed itself to me when I was talking to my fellow traveler about this particular sponsee and how I felt absolutely exhausted when I got off the phone with her. And I had never felt that way before with a sponsee and haven't since, because I'm not even sure, I don't even want to say what I think actually happened. I think there were some things that I can comment on that might have been the problem. And I think it started with my first introduction to her when she kind of told me her life story. And instinctively or intuitively, I realized that she had had a lot of severe trauma and losses. And I wasn't sure that I would be able to be of support to her with some of those things. And I commented on it at the time. And she assured me that she had a trauma therapist and she was working on all of that stuff. So I accepted to be her sponsor. But over time, I just, I felt like she wasn't making any headway. And I just was feeling so uncomfortable with the situation. So I made a decision to talk to her about maybe adding some structure to what we were doing, maybe going through the steps and providing a structure and boundaries around what we were talking about. Because what I was feeling like at the time was that she was just stuck in her story and wasn't able to use the tools of the program to really break through that story to get to some of her core issues and work those things in her life. None of the things that I tried really worked. I encouraged her to talk to other people, to build a community for herself, to get to more meetings, all the things that we would say to someone that we were supporting. None of it seemed to work. I consulted with my fellow traveler. I spent time in prayer. I worked through the steps myself around the problem, and just spent a lot of time in discernment, and finally made the decision that I was going to talk to her about dissolving our relationship. And I have to say, it was very painful, partly because of what I read in the reading. Was I know for adult children, abandonment is can be one of our core issues, and we never want to make someone feel rejected or that we're abandoning them. And I knew it was going to be very difficult for her. And I was kind of surprised by how difficult it was for me because I really cared about her a lot. I
That's
think
1 minute, Diane.
Thank you. That's perfect. I think I was successful in terminating the relationship because I was very clear. I was direct. I was honest. And I think I was very caring in my communication with her. And I also recognized that part of what was getting triggered in myself was the fixer and rescuer in me, the people pleaser in me. And I had to come to terms with that. So I'm grateful for this new piece of literature. I can't wait to read all of it. I think it's going to be very helpful. And I thank you for letting me serve.
Thanks, Diane. Okay, so in this morning's session, we had almost 0 minutes for questions, but we've got lots of time tonight. So if you have questions, we're gonna stop screen sharing now, and if you will raise your Zoom hands, we will invite you to unmute so you can ask your question or make your comment. Gretchen's gonna keep us on track. We'll have 2 minutes with a nudge at the end of 2 minutes to wrap up. You can finish your thought, but maybe not start a new one. And if there are questions, we're going to try and keep the answers to that same 2 minutes, just to allow for people.
Justine, before we go there are 3 people on phone and, well, not a lot, but several people who are on video only. If they know who they are, I can merge them so that, because I don't think they can talk if they're not merged. So for instance, one person's phone number starts with 831. But then they won't be able to tell me who they are. So I don't know if it's going.
Right.
If they can message me, if they can chat me, I can help them. We have a 831, a call-in user 14, and a call-in user 15.
Can they message?
Mm-hmm. They can message me.
Okay. Awesome.
All right, so we'll work that out. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. I completely forgot.
Welcome.
Okay, Alex, you're up first.
Hi, thank you so much for this workshop. It was exactly right on time for me personally, and I'm excited for the book or the literature to come out. My question is, some of us are alcoholics or addicts in recovery, not in recovery, para-alcoholics, we're all some version of ACA, and some of us might not even know. Is there any established guidance or wisdom around the use of substances as it relates to going through the steps? Is there an abstinence only rule? I've looked in the big red book and I've asked around, but I've gotten mixed responses. And I've been told, well, the goal here is emotional sobriety, and so don't drink or use. But at the same time, maybe others are abusing nicotine or caffeine or shopping or Netflix. And so I'm kind of just trying to figure out, these are really hard things and it's a very long journey. And what does it look like to support someone with gentleness and compassion, but also what are the rules or suggestions around that? Because for example, I'm in recovery for years through AA, but now that I know about ACA, I'm not even sure I'm the real deal alcoholic. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a comment I'd like to make, and then I'm going to turn this over to Greg, actually. Personally, and this is just my opinion, I think that doing step work, and I'm looking at you, step 4, doing step work can be really triggering. So if your primary program has been one of either substance abuse or process addiction, behavior addiction, whether it's food or shopping or sex or gambling or whatever, there could be triggers. There are going to be triggers. Stuff is going to come up and it's going to trigger you. And I think that if you're not in a good place, whatever that looks like for you, it's going to be more painful than maybe it needs to be to go through this work. Greg, your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my experience, not personal, but observing others coming in the rooms of ACA has been very much like what Justine said. There's a lot of triggering. There's a lot of in-depth work that even sitting in a meeting sometimes is really tough for someone who's not well grounded in their primary addiction or their addiction with substance. And so the recommendations that I give people when asked, I've had alcoholics come in and say, hey, you recommend being in here? And I said, well, my experience is this has been the toughest program I've worked. And I recommend that they get at least the 9 steps under their belt and 6 months to a year. But I don't say don't do that, don't come in. I say try coming to meetings. I said, but work the work in your primary program first, and then start your ACA work once you've done that. But just, if you come to the meetings, just try to give yourself a break when you hear something that's triggering. That's about all I can say to them, because I don't want to tell them what to do and not do.
Can I share one piece,
Thank
Justine,
you so
on this?
much. Sorry?
Justine, can I share one piece on this too? Just another.
Yeah, absolutely, Louis. Go ahead.
One thing that was really surprising to me in ACA was people coming in who haven't really identified other addictions, other primary addictions. So, being in a step work group and all of a sudden someone's talking about drinking, or something like that. Where people come into ACA looking for trauma recovery, but they may have drinking issues, or they may have eating issues or codependency issues that they really haven't looked at and identified as a primary issue. And in those cases, I really feel like it's not for me to say whether that's something they need to take a look at or not. It's for me to decide what's going to work for me to be around or not. And so, I don't drink anymore. I abstain from that. And so someone who's sort of messing around in the murky area, not having really identified that, is not someone who probably is going to work for me to form a close relationship with in the program. So it really sort of comes to me taking care of myself, recognizing that there are people that come into the program who have not yet identified either chemical or process addictions that they might want to take a look at. Thanks.
Thank you, Louis. Any of the other presenters want to have anything to have a response to that? All right, we'll move on to Joanne.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joanne. I'm a recovering adult child. Oh, it's so good. I know. It's good to see everybody. And thank you very much for your service, everybody's serving, and everyone who's listening and being part of my recovery. I have a question. I am very active in ACA in both service work and in my own recovery. And I get this a lot, whereas, can I phone you? Can I have your phone number? And I don't know. I want to be there for people. Like, I know in other programs, like, it's like, yeah, it's imperative. Like, if somebody calls you in the middle of the night, you answer it, right? Because it's life and death. But in ACA, like, I feel like there's a lot of people that are really looking for recovery partners and whatnot. And I appreciate that. I have a lot already and stuff. And I guess I'm a little worried. My insides are just sort of saying, hey, Joe, you're doing it to yourself again. You're taking on too much, right? And so I just would like to hear some of the answers to some of the presenters on how you handle the surplus of people asking for your time. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody want to take that?
I can chime in.
Go ahead, Louis, and then Greg, please.
No, go ahead, Louis.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I did a presentation earlier today sort of on this topic, and my service first and foremost is to my inner parts, my inner children. And I consistently have to take a look at how my traits express themselves, my sense of over responsibility, my need to rescue, all of these things. And I have to consistently check and ask myself, is what I'm doing in service to myself and in service to this other person, is what I'm doing in alignment with the ACA solution of becoming my own loving parent and supporting other people in becoming their own loving parent? So I feel you on this one. And I work with a lot of beginners, and I have a lot of people reach out to me, and I'm sort of at my max as far as the people who I regularly meet with. And I really try to make myself available if someone has a question and they want to meet one time, or, something on step 4, or, an inner child question. And I really try to make myself available, here and there, but also try to make it clear that I don't really have space on my plate for sort of regular work with people at this point. And that's been really hard for me, because that goes right up against my rescuer over responsibility caretaking stuff. And that's part of my recovery practice. So that's what I would say on that one. Thanks.
I use same sort of practice and thought process Louis just mentioned. I add one thing. I tell people when I give them my phone number, if I give them my phone number, I say, look, I will do my best to call you back in 24 hours. Sometimes that's not possible. But I said, if you need an immediate response from somebody, then you need to call somebody else, because it's probably not going to be me. And to be upfront with the timeliness or time. And then there was something else that I remembered, but I've forgotten what I remembered. So that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Greg. Diane, go ahead.
Yeah, I could respond to that. Similar to what has already been said. Also, if I do give someone my phone number, I ask them to text me first, and also back it up with saying, I may not be able to right away get back, but I will get back at some point. I also, if someone asks me to be their sponsor or fellow traveler, I usually say, why don't we, have a conversation? And I never say yes. I usually say, let's have a conversation and see how it goes, and we can talk about whether that's going to work or not, or what some other options may be that you could check out. That's kind of what I've been doing. But I could relate to what was said. We have a women's meeting that suddenly in the last 6 months it's just blossomed. And most of the people coming into the room are much younger than I am. And many of them have not had any 12-step exposure. So it's a lot. It's a lot. So I'm glad to hear what other people had to say, because it does require boundaries when you are a people pleaser and a rescuer. So thanks.
Thanks, Diane. One of the things that I did, there was a meeting where there were 5 or 6 women that asked me to sponsor them. And I was already kind of at my max at the time. And what I did was I started a meeting with them in the hope that they would end up being a group that kind of co-sponsored each other, or, became each other's go-to resources. And funny enough, I had to leave that group, and they are still meeting. So I'm really happy about that. So that was one option that I took out of the beginners meeting that Joanne has stepped up to champion and lead. Thank you, hon. Okay. Next question is from Ken.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ken, and grateful recovering adult child who also happens to be a therapist. And as a therapist, I can set very clear boundaries. And I would say I work in substance abuse, and I send probably 90% of my patients into ACA. I have good boundaries when it comes to that. I know my role. With sponsoring people, and I really, really limit the amount of people I sponsor and how frequently I sponsor. But oftentimes that role kind of strays away from just sponsoring. People I'm sponsoring might be depressed, they might be dealing with situational trauma or just crisis. And I find myself being pulled back more into the therapist role. And I'm just wondering if there's any feedback out there. I would actually love to start a support group, ACA support group for therapists, just because it's hard kind of juggling both those roles, but I do get so much out of sponsoring that I don't want to give that up. Any suggestions?
Well, I guess I will go in on this one too, since I work professionally similarly as you do, Ken. And it's a challenge. So, professionally, there's very clear boundaries and it makes things very clear cut. And I can always, as I'm working with someone, point to those boundaries and say, this is how it works. This is what I can do. This is what I can't do. Similarly, I have to be very careful about how it is that I work with people and recognize I'm not working in a professional capacity. When I work as a therapist, I'm oftentimes stepping into a parent role and stepping out of that. That's part of a professional role that I play. That's very different than ACA. In ACA, I'm consistently looking, are people bringing their inner child parts to me? And am I working with an adult part or am I working with a kid part? And what parts of me am I bringing to that relationship? So yeah, without the sort of professional boundaries, it makes things very different. And that's been part of my recovery also. And I've too connected with other people who work in professional capacities because it's sort of a unique experience to be in. Oftentimes, if I do sort of recognize that there are people who could probably benefit from professional services, very clearly, if I've met with them before, then I'm not going to work with them professionally. But I'm quick to try and help them get to the resources that they need, getting outside help when that's needed, and making sure that I'm not trying to take that on myself. So I hope that's helpful.
I'm not a therapist, and I understand you have a particular concern as a therapist, but I'm going to say that it's bigger than just therapists and ACAs. I spent much of my life as a consultant, a business consultant, a management consultant, and I have people that are self-employed, and they will come to me with and start going into the direction of business discussions. And it sounds like it's very similar to the concerns that you have, in the sense that there's a boundary there that I have to maintain. And the way that I maintain it is I am willing to work with some people. I'm retired, so it doesn't cost me anything to give people, to work with someone around their business. But I have to say, okay, wait a minute, we're going into a business discussion here. I'm not willing to go there as part of this discussion. We can talk about that separate from ACA. And it's still a fine line to walk, but I'm willing to go there as long as there's an acknowledged difference in the relationship during that discussion. And I know that there's a difference as far as being in your office or not being in your office. I don't have that issue, but that's one of the things that I found is challenging also. And by the way, I have several people that are in that situation. So.
Yeah, I would say I too have had two careers where there's been an element of counseling, and with my sponsees or fellow travelers, I always try to get back to the inner child with them and try to support them and using their recovery tools as a way to talk about whatever's going on. I really, and I feel like I provide a certain amount of education too, just from the things that I've learned in the program, and sometimes that helps. And putting structure around how we're going to, like I do different things with different people. Some people do a reading every day, and sometimes they write and they share it with me, or other people want to work the steps or one of the workbooks, that helps to provide some boundaries, because I can always come back to the material. But it is, and I also talked to my fellow traveler about any issues I have with sponsoring to help me clear and make sure I'm not being triggered or falling into, my own traits. So that's it.
Thank you, everybody. Next is Duncan.
Hey, Duncan, recovering ACA here. I just wanted to briefly share, my first sponsor told me, made a suggestion to me that's really worked well for a long time, that I pass on to others about finding support in recovery. When I asked him about sponsorship, he suggested to me that I speak with various people and just begin an outreach practice where I get acquainted with a number of recovery members, and to keep talking with him as well. And by getting acquainted with people first, I would make my best, sort of sponsorship or fellow traveler or recovery partner choices. And that it probably wouldn't work out with most people that I tried to connect with, but if I kept at it, I would eventually build a network of people that I could have naturally close, intimate working relationships with in recovery. And I did that, and it worked well for me. And when people ask me to sponsor them, if I'm not well acquainted with them, I suggest to them that we get acquainted first and just talk, and that they talk to other people as well. And this seems to work well. So I just wanted to throw that out there in the group, that contacting lots of people. I look for people on meetings that I resonate with or enjoy what they share, and ask for their number in a private chat, and call and just explore. And exploring the community. We're a huge community of people. My willingness to explore the community has helped me find a strong network of people that I can lean on and work together with in my recovery. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Duncan. Hey, Ren, you're up. Oh. Ren, can you raise your hand again, please? I lowered your hand by mistake, and now I can't find you to unmute you. I mean, I know it's alphabetical. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Justine, and the panelists, all of your wonderful insights and tools. I'm Ren, adult child raised by wolves, and very grateful to be here. A couple of things that I have waited to say, well, has anybody else said this yet? And I just wanted to add to the topic that after being around the 12-step culture for, well, a number of decades, I've really come to appreciate the fact that given that we're a grassroots, community-driven, self-help discipline, I know that we do run into some challenges around, are we on the ethical side of needing, of suggesting a person get professional help? Because it can get pretty dicey in some of the areas that our step work falls into. So I'm always really aware of that. And because I too, as a born again, state-of-the-art codependent from hell, have to always check myself. Presentation by one of the panelists earlier today of a perspective of, am I speaking to this person's inner child or loving parent? And particularly as a member of the LGBTQ plus ad infinitum alphabet community, queer, I like to think, there's a whole different, I don't want to sound terminally unique, but there is a level of cultural trauma that is added
2 minutes,
to.
Rin.
Thank you. And I'll wrap. And I struggle with, like what has been said, knowing when to say, I've got something we can exchange, because I believe sponsorship is a two-way street. I never have gotten anything less than what I've given to a sponsee, the very few I've done. And I'll just say that I have a 5-day a week queer meeting that reaches out with a very cryptic title to lots of newcomer of queer people. And it's a real challenge because I've done as much as I can to let it be self-sustaining. And now to have to just step back and either it's going to crash and burn or not. I love this meeting. It's Helligate ACA. And yet at the end of the day, it's like the universe gives me for what I need for a reason or a season or a lifetime, like the recovery in this program. Thank you all for 12-stepping me today. You're stuck with me. I'll keep coming back.
Thanks, Ren. Lauren, please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Lauren, ACA. Fairly new to this program. My question's quite unique, and I'm open to feedback. I was working a previous 12-step program for process addiction, and really struggled to find sponsors. Sometimes I was sponsoring when I didn't have a sponsor, or I had a co-sponsor, and lots of times showing up at different meetings. If I've worked with sponsors that had less time in the program, I really want this badly. I've been showing up to different ACA meetings, and there is a challenge of finding folks that have that experience and also have availability. And there's a huge shortage of therapists as well in Austin. And I'm a complex trauma survivor. I understand that it takes a team. I don't want to be a burden on any one person, and like I've reached out to a few people that I felt comfortable with, and they said they weren't sharing their number at this time. And it's really painful to my inner child going through this. So if anyone has any recommendations on how to like hang in there and have hope, I do work a yellow book meeting where there's break-off groups, and I find that to be really helpful. But when it comes to needing support or needing fellowship,
That's 2 minutes, Lauren.
I'm really struggling to find that. So we appreciate any feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody?
Yeah, Lauren, this is Greg. I think we've met or at least talked. I'll post in the chat how to get connected with our Thursday noon meeting. It may not work with your work schedule, but I think that it's a pretty healthy meeting and you might find more of what you're looking for there. It's also a yellow workbook meeting. But I'll post I'll give you a link in the chat.
Okay. Christine, I haven't seen you in what, a minute and a half?
I know, it's crazy, right? It's crazy. Hi, everybody. My name is Christine, and I've had the privilege of working on the committee that put together the Connections book, and it's really been a fascinating ride, and I highly recommend getting involved in a committee for anybody who has strong passions about any one of the myriad topics that we work on at ACA. But I want to say a couple things about the Connections book. And just may have mentioned earlier, so forgive me if I'm repeating things you've already heard, but we spent a couple years in a knockdown, drag out battle over sponsors versus fellow travelers. I mean, to the point where we really didn't think we thought we were just going to fall apart as a committee, and finally came up with the idea of stepping back and calling the relationship support, regardless of whether it's a sponsor or fellow traveler or co-partner or whatever you want to call it. And we found a common ground. And that's very important for all of us in program to remember that it's principles before personalities, right? We all had different views. We all have different things that work for us. And when we realized that's what we needed to address in our document, the fact that there are different ways, lots of different ways. I personally believe you can definitely recover without a sponsor, but you can't recover unless you come out of isolation and get some support. And it's that support that's so absolutely critical. So the document is now going through literature evaluation. I happen to be the chair of your literature committee. And when that does, and when we get to the stage of being in fellowship review, I really ask all of you to read the document and give us your feedback, because it's so important for the fellowship to tell us what you think. We don't expect that we're all going to agree.
That's 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. We don't expect that we're all going to agree, but we really want the feedback. We want our documents to reflect fellowship feedback and what the fellowship wants and needs and your own personal experiences. So as we get to that stage, I'm just making my pitch for engaging in fellowship review. And thanks a lot for listening.
Christine, this reminds me what you just said. There was a question in the chat much earlier that I think you could speak to. I don't really understand the purpose of the Connections book, like where it fits in with the big red book, the yellow book, the traits book, the loving guidebook. So can you sort of speak to where this fits in with all of our other literature?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. It's a great question. And you're going to find that the same thing is going to take place when we talk about the Getting Started book, which is a book designed for the first 18 months in recovery. We've got a lot of new pieces of literature coming online, and we are also looking at how we're going to deal with the Big Red Book. Are we going to put the information in the new Connections book in place of what was in the Big Red Book under sponsorship? And Justine, who is chairing this workshop right now, is the head of literature and development. We'll be talking about that at 7:30 tomorrow morning, how that works and how we'll be going about integrating the various new learning that's coming along. But we are a growing fellowship and we don't want our literature to become static. So what exactly happens with the Big Red Book? I will tell you this, my strong commitment is that the fellowship will weigh in. The fellowship will work with the new pieces. You'll work with the Loving Parent Guidebook and you'll say, yeah, we want the Loving Parent Guidebook to work its way into the Big Red Book. We want a lot of what's in there now to be in the Big Red Book, or we don't. We want it to be a standalone book. You are going to decide based on the work that you do with the pieces of literature. It's not going to be top down. And that's why I'm so thrilled that we're now going to have a data management subcommittee at WSO that can do the surveys, look at the results, help us sift through your opinions. But so the short answer, Tamara, is that we're really not sure at this point. We're also not sure whether we'll be making any recommendations about what piece of literature people should work with first, second, and third. We never have in the past. We never have. Will we do it in the future? Talk to Justine's committee. She's ready to hear from you.
Thank you. That's
Thanks.
helpful.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Before I take the next question or comment, Greg, somebody in chat asked for the information on the meeting that you just spoke about. Would you put that in chat, please? Can you?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, next question is from somebody on an iPhone.
Hi, my name is Kim, and I am an ACA from Maine. And I am so appreciating this conversation about like where queer inclusive spaces are. And as a trans person, this is so helpful to me, and I really feel seen in this space. And so I wanted to thank everybody here for making that safe, and for all the words that Christine just said about the language and the changes in the Red Book and bringing the loving parent in based on feedback or not. Because one of the things that is changing my life is the spirituality of this program and giving me away through the yellow workbook and through the reparenting meeting and through the meditation meeting. I feel like that is giving spirituality to me. And so my question is more about like making sure that when that opportunity comes to give feedback, because I did notice in the yellow book and just some different places that it's very gendered or even men specific. And I'd love to volunteer to help with the reading and going through and making suggestions that way, because I believe that like this is a universal fellowship for adult children. And I see trans people all around me who are adult children who don't have, and like they don't have a lot of trust. And so I feel like just that little language change will help with trust. And so thank you for listening to me. I really appreciate it.
We do have
Thank
a
you
new
so much.
language subcommittee,
and
literature, brand new language subcommittee. Alexandra E. is handling it, and you can her email is Alexa Jungle, ALEXA Jungle @gmail. I believe she's going to be at the 7:30 meeting tomorrow morning, the literature committee. But those are specifically the things that the language committee is looking at: loving language, non-directive language, representative language, and reading level and translatability. It's a huge project, and we're not dictating. We're making recommendations and observations. Thanks.
Thank you.
Christine, I'm sorry, it was Alexa Jungle at what?
Gmail.
Gmail. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got time for just a couple more. I'm gonna call on somebody whose area code is 831 next.
There she is.
Hello. Hi, I'm Judy. I'm really grateful to be here listening to all of you. And I'm currently not working. I'm semi-retired in another helping profession. And, you know, the idea of, I really love the, you know, partnership perspective on it. I did have a comment about like where I live, there was a really big push for a little bit about some really strong step study material that people were a part of that was very fast paced, and many people hadn't had any 12-step recovery and probably had some severe like PTSD trauma, to be honest. And many people dropped out and they felt kind of like failures, and it kind of pushed things more challengingly than they could have been. Just a lot of the tone was not as conscious and loving around how a lot of it, get your homework done, you can't talk unless you did your homework. There was just a, you know, already, so for me, having also worked a lot with those populations and having that historically in my family and having to work on it myself, you know, I'm very grateful that the Inner Loving Parent Guidebook's out. Our Red Book kind of, you know, offhandedly mentions you might want to get an Inner Loving Parent on board before you try to unpack these other people. But if you go straight into some of the intensive, fast-paced workbooks, that's not really possible. And there's a lot of energy, had been a lot of energy that that's the way, which I found was really triggering a lot of people. And I'm not sure, you know,
That's 2 minutes.
how traumatizing that was. So anyway, those are comments that I have around that, and around there are people whose inner children are severely traumatized. And that's another take about gentleness and slowing for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Last question is going to be from Kay.
Hi, thank you. I think I just emailed you, Justine. Thank you so much. I was wondering when the first 18-month guidebook is coming out, because I'm very new, and by the time it comes out, it looks like I'll be past that.
The Getting Started guide should, I mean, maybe next year. It's going in for, they just finished their final edit, and it's going in for literature evaluation now. It's going into the queue. So it's not next. Our book is next.
Okay, very nice. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Just to clarify. But it is coming, and you're right. You may not really consider yourself a newcomer anymore by the time you get it. But the language is very different from the Red Book, and so I would recommend. I'd recommend it anyway to anyone, whether they're new or not.
Okay, Getting Started.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it, and
Okay.
I really love what you all have said about the languages or how you're languaging and everything, and appreciated all of you, and thank you so much for all of this.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody who presented, everybody who came, asked a question, bore witness. I appreciate you all. Is it gender non-conforming? It's better. We're getting there. It's better. Is that similar to the beginner handbook? No, you're talking about the beginner handbook that came out of Gulfport, Florida. That's a meeting handbook. That is it's a meeting format. This is kind of a little red book, although we can't call it that because I hear some guys already took that title. But so it's very different.
Justine, I believe, I'm sorry.
Are we done?
We're
Can we
eating
be
into
done?
Lisa's time. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. So we're going to put links to Seventh Tradition in the chat. And if you are interested in volunteering your time, you know, any community needs helpers, please help. And thanks again so much for being here. Have a great night or day.